Welcome back to another edition of the Knight Report podcast. I'm your host, Mike Broadbent. Joining me once again is my co-host, Richie O'Leary, and part-time co-host, Alec Crowdhamel. Two commitments today to discuss. One from the high school ranks in 2026 athlete, but he's being brought in as wide receiver, Elias Coke. He is from Harrisburg, PA. And then Rutgers finished off the day by landing a transfer portal player. Also, both these guys have heavy Penn State connections. The cornerback Cam Miller from Penn State, not the kid from Winslow. This is Cameron Miller. He is from he's from Trinity Catholic High School in Florida, same high school as Isaiah Washington. We get into both those guys and more. But first, this podcast is presented to you by Knight and Day Apparel. Hey, Rutgers fans, get ready to slam dunk your style with Knight and Day Apparel. Cheer on your Scarlet Knights this basketball season with our exclusive Rutgers gear. From trend-setting designs to lifestyle garments, we've got you covered with everything you need to support your team in comfort and flair. Stand out in the crowd and show your passion for Rutgers basketball with designs that celebrate every dribble, dunk, and victory. Use our promo code RutgersRivals to get 10% off your purchase. Don't wait. Head to Knight and Day Apparel today and gear up for game day. Go Knights. We are also presented to you by BetOnline. BetOnline continues to be the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for online betting. From the earliest odds to in-game live betting, BetOnline provides you with all the action and the ability to watch games as they happen. The largest selection of odds from everything from football, the NBA, college basketball, NHL, and UFC. Head to BetOnline today and don't forget to use the promo code BELIEVE, that's BLEAV, for a welcome bonus on your first deposit. BetOnline, the game starts here. Okay, so let's start with Elias Coke. He is a 2026 receiver prospect. I think he's listed at 6'2", 188 pounds. Rutgers really beat out a list of heavy hitters to land this kid. It was down to Rutgers and Penn State. Rutgers came in at the 11th hour and was able to land Elias Coke. A lot of people had him future cast for Penn State. He was a take for Penn State, but Rutgers was able to make this happen. Rich, as somebody uniquely qualified to discuss the recruitment of Elias Coke, what happened in this one and how did Rutgers find a way to win out?
That's a loaded question. This was Penn State all the way. I actually put a future cast in for him back in October for Penn State. The kid visited Penn State for 4 games this past season. Also visited the State College 8 different times in the 2024 calendar year. So this is a kid that's been to Penn State more than any other school, like almost combined, actually, if you look at the rest of the visit numbers. Now, he's been to Rutgers a couple times, 2 times in 2024. But he hasn't been to campus since July for that barbecue event that they have at the end of every summer. So it didn't really sound like Rutgers was going to be able to get this one. I know he's built a good relationship with Dave Brock. I know he's also built a good relationship with Coach Perry as well. The two of them sold him on the idea of, hey, we have NFL ties. We've coached so-and-so. You could say, the list goes on and on. Julio Jones, Calvin Ridley, Mohamed Sanu even. I forget exactly who Perry was coaching in Houston, but there wasn't. DeAndre Hopkins. But yeah, there's a couple other notable names I can't remember off the top of my head. But this was all Penn State. Penn State was ready to take him. Penn State. We gave the kid a Penn State graphic. He gave us Penn State quotes. It was all but said and done, and it was going to be all Penn State. And then 11th hour, Rutgers made a couple calls to him, pushed as much as they could, and that was basically it. Rutgers got the job done in the past 36 hours around there now, depending on when you're listening to this. But a hell of a job by Rutgers to kind of flex their muscles. And this isn't a situation where, look at all his offers. Not most of them aren't committable. Like Penn State was ready to take him. Now, mind you, they have 3 wide receivers, so it makes it a little bit easier of a blow on them. Committed in 2026, but this is a solid get for Rutgers, and their first Pennsylvania get since Davon Fuse in 2023. It's been a while since they've struck in Pennsylvania.
Yeah, it's 2 years without a PA commit, which is kind of surprising for Greg Schiano and staff, but they have kind of cast a wide net. This is a particularly strong year for Jersey in 25, so that kind of makes sense. It's the second receiver commitment of the class with Dysert Carter. Mm-hmm. They are really kind of like you said, they have some great coaching there with 2 former NFL wide receivers coaches. They put a ton of production out on the field this year. You saw, Dymere Miller balling out. You saw huge emergences from Ian Strong and KJ Duff. The receiver room looks to be in good shape long term. Alec, what's your take on this commitment and the effort from the staff to get him committed?
Yeah, I mean, obviously the offer list, like Richie talked about, pretty impressive. The schools that they beat out, and then looking at the player himself, this is kind of continuing the trend that we're seeing Rutgers target with their wide receivers. Really, those tall, lengthy guys. From what I've seen, he has a pretty solid catch radius, long, lengthy, has good hands, can go up and get it. He doesn't have breakaway speed, but we did see him in some of his highlights. He'll get past the DBs on a go ball and can hold it into the end zone. We saw that a lot. He plays for a really, really talented Harrisburg team. And, if you get one guy from there, who's to say you can't start getting more guys with the talent that they have put together? I think Richie said that they have 4 other Power 5 kids, Power 5 caliber kids on their team. So he's part of a really talented team as well. But yeah, this is a really solid get and a good way to flex your muscles in the Big Ten recruiting circle in 2026 because, obviously you get Gavin Sidwar and Desir Carter to start the class, then Sidwar decommits. We haven't heard a ton on the 2026 class other than that, and then you get another one. Beating out Penn State, always a good win for Rutgers to beat out the local team in the area. And you're really going into their territory too. Harrisburg, it's like an hour or so, if that, from State College as well. So pretty good get. And now the 2026 class off to a pretty good start with receivers.
Yeah, great start to the class. Richie, you put up his stats from this past season, but what are some of the numbers he put up playing for Harrisburg?
900 plus receiving yards, 10 touchdowns. I got to pull up the numbers for his defensive stats, but yeah, he also played DB for them. I'm kind of indifferent on where his position is at the next level. I feel like he's not fast enough to play receiver at the Big Ten level. So can he get faster? Of course he can, but he runs like consistent 4.8, which is not ideal, but like Alex said, like Rutgers loves those tall, lengthy guys on the outside. He's 6'2", 6'3", 200 pounds already. So in like a modern offense, which we know Rutgers, despite the big bowl game where they kind of exploded a little bit, in a modern offense, I kind of see him as like a future hybrid tight end, which I also kind of saw for Corey Duff. But I think in this offense, he'll probably be an outside guy for them. Could he play DB if this doesn't work out? Yeah, of course. And we know Greg is kind of pretty well known for flip-flopping guys that if they don't work out receiver, they'll go to DB. If they're not working out DB, they go to receiver. We saw Chris Long go back and forth 3 or 4 times. Hell, Ian Strong was a safety when he signed with Rutgers. Was a safety in the first week of camp, and then all of a sudden they're like, "Oh shit, kid's got hands. Why is he on that side?" So yeah, I think it's a pretty solid get. Here it is: 968 receiving yards, 11 touchdowns, 47 tackles, 5 interceptions, leading Harrisburg to an 11-3 record and multiple playoff wins for a very talented Harrisburg team, like Alex said. They have 2 running backs currently in 2026, for both 4 stars. One's committed to Syracuse, one's committed to Penn State. They have a top 50 offensive tackle in Kevin Brown, who's committed to Penn State. They now have a Rutgers commit. They produce at a pretty high rate for Middle Pennsylvania, I guess. Yeah, we'll say Middle Pennsylvania.
Yeah, big time program to get involved with. Maybe I'm wrong here, but didn't Micah Parsons go to Harrisburg, or am I thinking of someone else?
I believe you are correct. I know they produce at a crazy high rate for a public school in the middle of Pennsylvania. I keep saying middle, but yeah.
Yeah, he did go to Harrisburg. Correct.
That's actually Rutgers' second get ever from the school, joining Robert Martin.
Oh, yeah. He was a guy.
That was a pretty solid one, too.
I thought was going to be so good. I remember when he committed, he had just run like one of the fastest 40s ever at a Rutgers camp. I think they clocked him at like high 4.2s, and they went and got him. Obviously, that's not what he actually ran, and hand times, blah, blah, blah. But he was somebody that they coveted for his speed and never really kind of put it all together. He had his moments at Rutgers, but big time commitment here. So that makes 2 receivers for the 2026 class. Do you think they're done at receiver? You think they add one more? What's the kind of outlook? Where would you look for kind of where Rutgers goes at receiver and the rest of the class, Rich?
I'd say they probably add at least 1, if not 2 more. I think the average is probably going to be like 3 to 4 per cycle. Now, you could differ depending on what the wide receiver room looks like. It's obviously pretty stacked right now. It looks pretty good. Ian Strong, yeah, for a couple more years. Corey Duff was just the true freshman starting. He's going to assume that role for 2 or 3 more years, in an ideal world too. And he's gone to the league. But But yeah, there's a couple names out there. Messiah Hampton out of New York is the one I'm keeping a really close eye on. I think we have him. Oh, actually, he got upgraded. Never mind. They listened to me for a change. He's now a 4-star out of Rochester. Really talented kid, but there's just also not a ton of offers out right now for wide receivers. I think they're going to evaluate in spring, kind of go see some workouts, see how some kids perform in camps, and go from there. But Messiah Hampton would be the name to keep the closest eye on. I know he wants to stay local-ish in the Northeast, but he has a lot of suitors too. Looking right now, Travis Johnson down in Virginia is pretty solid. Quick little speedster. You could switch it up a little bit and go after more of a slot guy as well, or you just keep hitting up the portal like they've done in the past couple cycles. So, Dymere Miller, Jaquay Jackson, who am I thinking? DT Sheffield, duh. So I could see that route too. I'd probably say one more, definitely. Two more, maybe.
Love it. Another strong start to a recruiting class. Looks like Shiano is trying to top the last 2 years once again in 2026. Stay tuned as the year goes on. I know we have a junior day coming up. This is typically in today's day and age when recruiting starts to get hot and heavy for the juniors, the 2026 class. So Rutgers was not satisfied with one big news item today. They landed a cornerback, Cam Miller. His full name's Cameron Miller from Penn State. Made a handful of starts this year. He was basically the CB3 on Penn State's team this year. He left Penn State and quickly found a new home at Rutgers. Rich, again, uniquely qualified here. What is Rutgers getting in cornerback Cam Miller?
This is nice. It makes my job really easy when I can just share the same article on multiple sites. Yeah, no, Cameron Miller played 3 years at Penn State. He's probably going to be a starter for them. I know that was one of the things he was really looking for when he entered the portal. But he started 4 games this season, played a ton of snaps, up and down performances. He had some good games, and he's kind of pretty notable for the Notre Dame game where he kind of fell and gave up the 50-yard touchdown that essentially cost him the game. But Florida kid's pretty athletic, 6 foot 190-ish, 185-ish. Like you mentioned before, same high school as Isaiah Washington. I know the two of them are close. I think he's a good corner. I don't think he's a great corner. I really wanted him to go after like a true lockdown cornerback one. And it didn't happen, but this also gives him a little bit of flexibility. You can move a guy around from the corner room into that like nickel position. You could either play like that more box type safety that everyone has a different name for. There's star, lion, this, whatever. I don't know. I think Rutgers, what did Rutgers call it? They called it, I can't remember the name of it. But besides the point. So it allows you a little bit position flexibility. You can move Mascow, you can move Henderson, go from there. And then there's probably your starting 5 safeties because those are 3. And then you get Jet Elad as a safety, starting 5 DBs. You get Jet Elad as a safety, and then Kosh Sanders reassumes his role as a starting safety. So it's that's going to be your secondary this season. I think it's a solid piece. I think I would have liked for them to aim better, but I do think that he provides a lot of not only depth, but a solid corner to cover half the field.
Yeah, I think they clearly needed another cornerback. And I'm glad they're picking up another guy who's had a lot of experience because you lose your top 2 corners in Eric Rogers and Robert Longerbeam this year, and they don't really have a lot of guys behind them that are probably ready to play right now. And obviously a lot can change between now and then, but it does add this layer of security. And we talked about kind of stocking the fridge with more than you might need to make a meal, for lack of better terms. So who knows, maybe a young guy does emerge and break out, and some of these guys we brought in to be likely plug and play starters or heavy contributors end up not contributing as much as anticipated. But it is nice to have that security in having a guy who's played in the Big Ten for 3 years. And he didn't redshirt. He played a lot as a true freshman. He played in every game for Penn State as a true freshman. He was a part-time starter there for the last 2 years. So he's going to know what to expect coming into the Big Ten in ways that other transfers might not. Alec, what is your take on Cam Miller and what he brings to this defense for Rutgers?
Yeah, I think you can't overstate enough how important it is to get a guy with Big Ten experience because, obviously bringing Jacoby Henderson, Jet Elad into the DB room, and, they're definitely solid ads, but they don't have that experience playing in the Big Ten where, it's arguably top 2 football conference in the country, maybe even not two. But yeah, getting that experience is definitely key. And like you said, Mike, getting that early experience as well, where you maybe learn good and bad in the Big Ten playing. And even if having that low light against Notre Dame, still playing at that highest level, very important. And yeah, I agree with both you guys. They needed that fifth or not that other corner that can kind of take over that part of the field. And it like Richie said, it gives you a lot of flexibility. Whether I think Jacoby Henderson has some experience playing in the nickel at Marshall. You can move Bo Masco around as well. Like Richie said, you have a lot of options here for what you want to do with that last nickel role. And we've seen Rutgers do a lot of things with that role, like a Shaquan Loyal or like a Desmond Igbenusin in years past as well, like a Christian Izzian, even looking further back too. So it definitely gives them a lot of different things to do, and that's always good to have when you have a lot of pieces that you can kind of mold to your liking how you want to run the defense.
Yeah, speaking of that, Rich, do you obviously Rutgers' base defense is a 4-2-5. We still know who the DC is going to be, but assuming that they keep that kind of configuration on defense, which 99% chance they will.
Yep.
Where do you see this defensive backfield shaking out? Do you think that they're going to try and move some guys around? Do you think that the guys they brought in at corner are going to stay? What's your read on where things stand in this defensive backfield?
So Cam Miller's not coming in to be a bench player, put it like that. He's going to start. So there's one corner down. The other corner I'd probably say right now is going to be Henderson, I think. But Henderson and Mascow have both logged, like Alex said, they've both logged snaps in the nickel before. So I would assume one of them probably shifts to nickel. Now, technically, I guess the nickel it's nickel cornerback, but is it a safety? Because you can push them back a little bit too and play that like just another high safety role. A lot of more teams or I should say almost every team that runs a 4-2-5 it's three safety sets. So I think Mascow will probably go if I had to guess, because Jacoby spent, despite him playing some nickel last season, most of his time was on the outside. Now, another option is you move, say, Mascow back to high safety and put Jet Elad up. Jet Elad, we know, can play either position. It was actually just projected to be the nickel for UNLV this season, but ended up playing more of a high safety role because he was just better in coverage. So it's really a lot of movement. I think those five names, though, between Miller, Henderson, Mascow, Jet Elad, and Kosh Sanders are all probably locked in as the starters. How you're going to make those five work, it's going to be up to whoever the new DC is, and combined with Mark Orphy and Drew Lascari to kind of figure that one out. And I guess Giano, of course, too.
Yeah, if there's anything I do trust, we've said it time and time again, you can drink if you play this drinking game, but Giano has proven he knows what he's doing at defensive back, and just blindly trust him with what he's going to do there. Do you think they're done at corner now after they've landed their second guy out of the portal, or do you think there's a possibility they go after one more?
Yeah, they're pretty much done at this point, I would assume. We know they like Al-Shadi Salam. I know they're also very high on two others in Sage Claudius, who actually moves from safety to corner. Despite I was a little shocked hearing that, because he's 6'3", 6'4". I'm like, oh shit! Like, all right, that's a damn big corner. If he's athletic enough to keep up, go ahead, sure. And then Kevin Levy. Kevin Levy almost burned his red shirt this year by playing that many games. They're very high on his potential. We know a lot of Florida schools were after him. Florida State wanted him specifically. But yeah, so I mean, I think they're done at corner, because you still have to develop young guys despite having these stopgaps. I shouldn't even say stopgaps, because this is just the new norm. But and they're also pretty good. They're not stopgaps. So I think they're done at corner. I think if a safety emerged, oh, my cat's going nuts. If a safety emerged, they could potentially add one, but I think they're probably done at DB in general. I think they're going to start shifting towards other positions, specifically linebacker. We know they want a defensive tackle still, a third one, and then an offensive lineman. They need an offensive tackle pretty badly, in my opinion, at least. And I think you guys would probably agree. I can't talk today.
Yeah, a starting level tackle would certainly be nice. Not going to be cheap there, and they're not easy to come by. A guy that I thought they would go after, and Rotrell Perry, I think his name is, just committed to Maryland. He's a kid who is from Connecticut, but he played his high school ball at Trinity Pawling in New York. Not really sure what happened there. It doesn't seem like Rutgers really went after him. But something I kind of want to hit on with Sage Claudius. Usually position changes are not the thing you want to see from a player once they get on the banks. But I think there is situations where when a player gets moved, especially early in his career, to a more athletic position that is harder to play, it's a good sign. So Claude just got brought in as a safety and basically was moved to corner in like either training camp or the spring. So what that tells me is they weren't sure if he would be able to handle the athleticism of playing cornerback at his size, because he's a bigger guy. I think he's listed at like 6'2", probably close to 200 pounds, and he proved them wrong. So if he's got that size and they feel comfortable with him playing corner, I think that's actually a really good sign, as opposed to somebody who comes in as like a middle linebacker and gets moved to defensive end, or a defensive end that gets moved to defensive tackle. Those are typically the ones where it's like, oh, he doesn't have the speed to play this position, so we have to move him down to get him on the field. But just wanted to throw that caveat out there. So two pretty big news items. I'm pretty excited for it because, we look like Nostradamus at this point. If you look at what we've wrote up about, what they should target in the portal this year, I had them getting between like 7 and 16 guys, and people were kind of snickering at the idea of them going after 16 transfer portal guys. What are we at, 11 commitments now? Like, we might actually get pretty close to that high end number, which would be a huge change in direction from the staff in terms of how they prioritize recruiting. But I think Schiano is nothing if not, he knows the direction the wind's blowing, and I think early in his career he might have fought against it, but I think with his comments and with his actions, he's shown that, with the direction things are going, Mother Nature is stronger than you are. Just, you have to find a way to go in the direction that the storm's going and not going into it. So very promising developments in the transfer portal front this offseason.
Yeah, if you don't like the way something is, change the way you think about it.
Exactly.
The wise words of the same guy that said, "Fight for your milk."
Oh my God. That's re-bubbled up on some Discords.
Yeah.
Apparently they've like scrubbed a lot of, maybe not scrubbed, but people are having a hard time finding the infamous milk quote. Fight for your brothers, fight for the milk. That was a quote in front of the Syracuse game, or after the Syracuse game that came out.
Bring back those uniforms too. Those were sick.
Those were cool. Yeah.
And that is number 11, by the way, on the year. Transfers.
Okay. And they're not done. Where do you guys think that they go from here in terms of the portal? Alec, where would you, if you were Pinocchio, the puppet master, where would you continue to look for targets in the portal?
I think the obvious one would be left tackle on the offensive line. And it seems like they're starting to look for that a little bit. Now, does it actually formulate into getting someone? That's kind of a different question, because offensive linemen are expensive, very expensive, even for the average ones in the portal. They're very expensive. So I think they're going to look for one. I can't say right now if they'll actually get one, but they're definitely going to look. And I think they probably want to add at least, I would say, one more to the defensive line, probably to the interior. I believe they're looking for one more on that inside after missing out on Owen Wafel. And then probably linebacker, I think, is where I would go next for that third option. They haven't added a linebacker yet. So maybe looking to get just a veteran guy that can play snaps, and has experience doing so. And then, I think I can't believe I'm saying it, but they might almost be done after those three. Now, of course, it's easier said than done actually getting players, but I think it would be offensive tackle, particularly left tackle, linebacker or defensive tackle, and then linebacker for the, top three to go next.
The only caveat I have to add on is I think they probably look for one more safety. I know that they were in on Bishop Fitzgerald, who ended up at USC. Rich, I want to get your take on two more guys since they're Rutgers adjacent and PSU targets as well. Rutgers missed out on Owen Wafel, ends up at Penn State. Rutgers was involved with Bishop Fitzgerald, the safety, who visited Penn State, ended up at USC. Talk about what happened with both their recruitments and why they didn't end up at Rutgers ultimately.
Yeah, so Owen Wafel, there's actually a lot of talk about him from our Michigan friends over that run the Maize and Blue site on Rivals. There was a lot of chatter that Penn State tampered with him, which shocking. People tamper in the transfer portal era. Wow, I never knew that one. And they tampered with him because they wanted him, but they also want Luke Wafel. And it sounded like that was almost predetermined, so to speak. So, but then he started taking more visits, so I thought Rutgers might have had a shot. But at the end of the day, he just ended up. He wanted to stay close. He wanted to stay close to home, but not too close to home, and he gets that with Penn State. There's actually a potential. He wants playing time too, and I'd argue that the defensive tackle room at Penn State might be thinner than at Rutgers currently, just based on the fact that you brought in two guys that are going to play significant snaps, if not start, in Blue Eli and Dengoe. They also have Keshawn Griffin, who's really stepped up late season and is going to play significant snaps, and Zaire Angoy. And they were going to bring in a third one. Now, could that have been Owen Wafel? I'd argue even if they brought in Wafel, who has 4 years remaining, they might have brought in someone else on top of that too, because they want someone that has a little bit more experience in that defensive tackle room, and they like to rotate guys that play 20 snaps, 25 snaps a game, and rotate with the backup. And you want guys fresh legs, fresh bodies out there. And then who was the other one? Oh, Bishop Fitzgerald. He was actually another very weird situation where he actually verbally committed to Penn State. So then Tom Allen left. Tom Allen actually recruited him out of JUCO to Indiana. He never ended up committing to Indiana, but they had a relationship previously. He verbally committed to Penn State, was ready to go. And then the very next day, Tom Allen ended up leaving for Clemson. And that was it. He's like, I'm not doing this. Now, here's in a very, very weird situation for Penn State. My cat is going nuts in the background. I don't know if you guys hear that, but it's insane. Yeah. But anyway, Bishop Fitzgerald committed to USC over Penn State. USC's defensive coordinator is the hottest trending name for Penn State's defensive coordinator. It's so loud. For the defensive coordinator spot at Penn State. If he goes to Penn State, does Bishop Fitzgerald flip back to Penn State over USC now? I don't know, to be determined, but very weird scenarios and very annoying cat in the background that is just super vocal, and she does this every day.
Just making her case for being starved and mistreated in the background.
Yeah, it is her time to eat. That's why she's getting pissed off.
Yeah, of course.
I hear you. So 2 pretty big commitments for different reasons. Anything else before we head out of here, guys, on either of the commitments from today, or anything else you want to talk about Rutgers related?
Basketball tonight for women's. I know Alec's going to that game. Nothing really else. It is interesting that Rutgers is able to beat out all these other schools now. It's no secret. I said it before. It's NIL related. It's revenue share related. When you have both, it's pretty fucking easy to recruit, it seems like. So giving
or it
Greg
makes
Schiano
it a lot easier. I wouldn't say it's easy.
Yes.
You can't just like roll up with a bag and be, let's say Lehigh. No offense to Lehigh, but Schiano's still a good recruiter. It's just letting him level the playing field a little bit when he can offer comparable or more money.
Correct. But I also want to state it's not just rev sharing. This is NIL too, and you got to give Schiano credit because he's done a really, really good job of raising funds for the program. I know people have asked me, like, why isn't basketball like recruiting at this level? Are they going to recruit this level in this offseason? It's like, no, probably not. It's just a totally different game, totally different playing field. I said, and there's people on our boards that are like, how are Schiano convincing people that have nothing to do with Rutgers ever in their entire lives to donate to Rutgers? And it's like, in another life, that man's like the perfect politician. Nothing gets out. He just knows how to raise money and raise money and raise money. And he could sell you a bridge, to be honest. And I'd probably buy it.
Yeah, they've cleaned up this offseason. I know that some services grade out recruiting class or portal classes, and everyone I've seen that has those rankings has Rutgers towards the top. I'm not going to mention who they are, but I saw them as high as number 2 in the Big Ten this offseason, which is pretty crazy, only behind Michigan. So
I will say I like the way that service does the rankings because it's like a net positive / net negative based on who you're losing and who you're gaining.
Yep.
But Rutgers is also number 12 right now. Then that's before adding the new commitment in Cam Miller. But they're number 40 something. But on top of it all, like these are updating rankings for Rivals too for the portal DT Sheffield just moved 115 spots up, and he's now number 126 overall portal wide receiver recruit. She's happy too. CJ Campbell moved up 100 spots. He's in the top 200. Jacoby Henderson's in the top 200. Like, now, do I think we have some guys way too low, like Colin Weber and Jet Elad? Yes, but it's still impressive to have two top 200 portal guys, and you beat out SEC schools for them. So,
yep. I think we're going to be a much better team next year. Maybe I'm getting a little too ahead of myself with, just, thinking based on projected better health next year, some of the upgrades they made at places that they weren't very good last year, to say the least. I don't know. I don't see in terms of like the metrics of like, EPA and things like that. I think they'll be a better team. Much tougher schedule. I can't say they're going to have more wins, but I feel really good about this team they're assembling, and I can't wait to see them in the spring. But. All right. Well, thanks once again for listening. We said yesterday that you never know when these pods are going to come out, and we had 2 news items that are worthwhile of their own pods. They just happen to happen pretty close to one another. We may have had a recording just for the the commitment this morning, and then
we don't talk. That one was that. I don't know if you noticed. I had to pre-record that, like re-record that beginning about 5 times. It was rough.
It was an interesting one. We had about 5 takes of the intro.
Yeah. I swear it's not that hard. I don't know. Maybe it's because I've read it so many times that it doesn't faze me anymore. But
it's rough.
You never know when this next pod's going to come out. I anticipate we'll have one Friday to cover the hoops game on Thursday night at Nebraska. That's a late tip. I think it's a 9:00 tip. So drink some coffee after work. Get yourself ready to watch a game. Tonight, Danny Breslauer is hosting a Rutgers basketball Twitter Spaces, a bit impromptu. He's normally the type who schedules these things for the entire season. I think he put out like his Twitter Space schedule on one of the Discords for the entire Rutgers hoop season. But tonight he decided to do one impromptu at 8:00. So if you are interested in that, look up Danny Breslauer on Twitter, and you can set a reminder for that Twitter space. So, all right, well, that's it. Thanks again for listening. To all that have liked and subscribed, thank you very much. If you haven't already, we would do us a huge favor to give us a 5-star review on your favorite podcasting platform, to subscribe to us on YouTube, and to follow us on your favorite podcasting platform as well, so you know exactly when podcast episodes go up. But for me, Richie and Alec, this has been another edition of the Knight Report podcast, signing off.